Do you think bigger legacy media has failed?
In certain pockets, they've prioritized the wrong things for too long, and they're getting caught. Larger media companies became very successful doing low common denominator things. They just didn't have operational discipline. Scale up to a point is still important. I mean, we have over 4 million people active on our main newsletter. That's really important. You're just so much more than a newsletter now, and the loyalty that the newsletter was created over the previous 10 years gives us the ability to be an amazing company for the next 10 years. There's two sides of the business. There's consumer, there's B2B, video, audio, podcast. Media is fragile. It is hard to remain relevant and profitable and growing for extended periods of time without being very comfortable being uncomfortable.
All right, welcome to the Morning Brew Daily Studio. We are in New York City for our second day in a row, and we're filming a super exciting company, Morning Brew Incorporated, or Morning Brew Inc., and we're talking to their CEO, Robert Dippell. They are known for their newsletter, but they're much more dynamic than that. They have 21 different franchises, and they do B2B media. They also do consumer media. They're an incredibly dynamic company. We're gonna be talking to Robert about the business media landscape, Morning Brew's evolving business model, and of course, how technology is changing the game. I'm William Salvi, and this is the CEO series where we have real conversations with real CEOs. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's go talk to Robert. All right, we are with the CEO of Morning Brew, Robert Dippell. Robert?
Will?
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here as well.
So, Morning Brew is known for its newsletter, but tell me about all the dynamics of Morning Brew and what Morning Brew has actually become since the inception of a newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, Morning Brew, 10-year-old company. It's actually our 10-year anniversary, like right now. Next week, we're having an event with all of our employees to celebrate that. So really cool inflection point for the business. And one of the things that makes that inflection point most visible is that we are just so much more than a newsletter now. And the loyalty that the newsletter was created over the previous 10 years is something that gives us the ability to be an amazing company for the next 10 years. But we're doing a lot more stuff. But that newsletter, that probably is what most people who are watching this got to know us through, kind of started a relationship that we've extended well out of the inbox. And the business now is a healthy mix of consumer media, business media, and we've built out this much more complex multi-channel media company that helps people professionally. It also just helps them with lots of different types of business interests.
How many franchises do you have? Can you actually walk? So you
A
just
little over
mentioned
20.
A little over 20.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a few? Can you list off some of them?
Definitely. So there's two sides of the business. There's consumer, there's B2B. So on the consumer side, we have a bunch of different franchises that are mostly video, audio, podcasts, social videos, YouTube shows.
This can range from comedy to news to podcast,
Yeah.
literally podcasts. We're watching one right now.
Yeah. So there's different ranges of comedic versus informative.
When you're a CEO, you report to your board. So can you imagine this conversation?
Do I have what it takes to be a professional magician?
Back pockets.
I have a cell phone.
Oh, that's concerning.
There's also the way we organize them is based on a Venn diagram of interest. We kind of play in certain circles that we know our audience is interested in. And the main ones are business news, like Morning Brew Daily has become consistently one of the #1 business news podcasts in the world. And it plays in the business news circle of that Venn diagram. We also play in work life and talking about what's going on in modern day work life and what it's like to work remote or work in office and things like that, HR topics. We play in entrepreneurialism and growing a company, being a founder, and we play in money and markets. And we've invested a lot into that, pun intended, into being a nice alternative for a younger affluent audience and how to navigate the public markets, how to think about that, how to interact with some of these big companies in new ways. So that is our consumer side. If you look at any franchise like Good Work or Money with Katie, Maxonomics, Brew Markets, they all fit within one of those. So that's the consumer side. Is that clear?
Yes.
On the B2B side, it's different. Everything I just described is interacting with you as Will.
Yeah.
And what your personal interests are and what you're talking about with your friends and family. On the B2B side, it's how do we make Will better at his job? And we play in 8 different verticals, specific verticals of industry that represent what our audience is. We think we can do well there. There's advertising potential there. That's marketing, HR, IT, technology, revenue, and healthcare. So within each of those, we treat them kind of individually, but it's a portfolio of B2B franchises that we operate, newsletters, events like you went to today.
Yeah. How many events would you say you host a year?
We do 10 of these a year, and the strategy is really, rather than have broad subject matter, we look at all the verticals that we operate in. So retail, IT, marketing, revenue,
This is
healthcare.
Marketing Brew.
This is Marketing Brew. And then within those verticals, what are the topics that matter right now, where people need tangible help? We look at all the data of what are our readers looking for? What do we think there's an opportunity for our advertisers? What does our editorial team think is going to be the main big topics? And then we go one level deeper within that industry. So Marketing Brew, we know that attribution and tracking and data and performance is really important. So we might do an event about that.
The event you went to today was on creator marketing and the future of monetizing business of being a creator. Very hot topic. Everyone's talking about it. It's not like that was a revolutionary topic. But why that's a good one is because it's so opaque, it's so abstract to talk about creator marketing. For most people, they're curious about it, but they don't really know what to do with it. That's perfect for events. Then you get a bunch of people from different parts of the industry, and you get actual creators, you get agencies that represent creators, you get brands that hire creators, and that you get them on stage and you have really informed conversations about what the hell's going on, how they use it, and everyone in the audience is learning something. Morning Brew, Marketing Brew is providing that great direct relationship. And then for our advertisers, equally valuable. How else are they going to find that captive of an audience that really care about that topic in that vertical? So I'm hugely bullish on events.
And people love the networking. Again, we're still riding post-COVID. I know it feels like a long time ago. There is just such a desire to meet other people from different industries that are in similar jobs and talk about what works for them, what doesn't.
Yeah.
I love that we can make that happen.
I love it.
Yeah, good.
So they destroyed this part of the
Yeah, I wasn't
building
here
when
for it.
Okay.
They made this hall to make the 2 floors connected, which is great.
This is more of the creator central over here.
Yes.
Down here.
And most of the shows, if you see in any studio that we own, are filmed right here.
Okay.
Up and down. We have a lot of all-purpose studios, and then it all kind of filters into this control room. So this control room,
This is hardcore.
it is very hardcore. So build lots of different sets in here for lots of different shows. One of the great things is our creators can have an idea and theoretically they could film a video that day if they wanted. Other ideas take weeks of research and travel and all sorts of things. But we have these studios because they could come in here and build what they need and work with our team and do some cool stuff.
Have you ever gotten a call from a company, say a PR person or a spokesperson, and they're like, take that down?
It certainly has happened in the past, and sometimes we say no, and sometimes we say yes. There's a lot
Just
of
depends on what the case by case is.
Yeah, and I think every media company is trying to play that balance of protecting church and state. It's really, really important. We want our creative people to be able to be creative. That is essential. But also have guidelines as to what sort of content we want to create.
When you have a new franchise launch, how much difference and spin do you put on it from other franchises? Because you want it to be under the Morning Brew Inc. umbrella, but at the same time, you want it to differentiate from other franchises.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that balance is being struck?
You got to clearly communicate what the role of that franchise is. Why the hell did we do this? What audience is it serving? What is the reason we did it? So Revenue Brew is a great example. We saw a timely situation happening where there's a huge amount of innovation and investment going into all these different types of technology and services and events to basically help companies monetize better, to help drive more revenue. But there was no industry publication writing about that. There's a bunch of people on LinkedIn yelling about how to get more pipeline, but there's no one writing about the industry of revenue. And at the same time, the companies that are operating, it's not just you have a sales team anymore. It's you have an account management team that's just as important. You have a revenue strategy team. You have a creative team. You have FP&A. You have pricing and yield team. You have an inventory management team. There's all these different groups, depending on what your company is, that are all rowing the same direction to generate revenue. And there was no publication for them. So we saw these two things and thought that Revenue Brew could be a really good solution to them. And the time was good because there's just so much innovation happening. There's so much discussion. And we thought that Morning Brew had license to do that. And then also we think that that is something that is applicable across tons of industries. So like whether you own car washes or you just got VC funding for like an AI startup, you're worried about monetization, you have some version of those teams. So it's a big opportunity. And you can learn, those people who read it can learn from those different types of companies.
Could you talk to me, because I love this question. We've had a couple of CEOs that have taken over from founders.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me about that dynamic, is taking over a brand from founders, and then on top of that, how you were brought on to move the company forward?
Yeah, well, first, I got very lucky. Like, the founders are awesome guys. Alex had already moved on and was doing a lot of exciting things, but I got to work closely with Austin for like a year and a half. And I mean, he was around since the very beginning. This is his company with Alex. And the transition was about no BS, about as smooth as it could go. I mean, he was ready to go do other things. I'd already been with the company for about 2 years at that point. So I'd seen under the hood, kind of the right moment for it as well. Like, companies going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 5, 1 to 10 need a certain type of operator and a certain type of founder, which I'm not necessarily that person. And Alex and Austin were. And then the company gets to a point where it's much more operational and you need to have seen a lot of things. You need to have failed in other things, and you need just like a different mentality. So I was initially brought in very specifically to help with the B2B side of the business, very specifically to help operationalize the revenue organization within the company. And those two things kind of kicked off just getting way deeper, becoming the COO, then the COO, CRO, and then ultimately the CEO. And I think for where the company is, that was what was needed. There needed to be somebody who had kind of that more operational experience, had been in media for almost 20 years, to kind of take the baton and make sure that this amazing brand that's like a once in a career opportunity can keep going and be even better. I mean, that's what our readers and everybody wants.
Talk to me about your past, because you said you've been in media for about 20 years.
Yeah, wild to say that out loud, but yes.
But you started it with like managing accounts and advertising with like Doritos, and what was the other major brand?
Doritos and Starbucks. Yeah,
Starbucks.
That was fast. I mean, so out of college, I worked at a startup and then went to an ad agency called Goodby Silverstein and Partners. Great agency in San Francisco. And I was like a junior account manager on Starbucks and Doritos, and worked the crazy hours and was the very bottom of the totem pole. And I did that for about a year, and honestly kind of looked around the room and was like, this isn't where I want my career to go. Great exposure. I like media and advertising, but I didn't want to be in the agency world. And then I stumbled into media for a small company, and ended up being at that company for a decade, and helped build it from, I believe it was about 20 people when I got there. When we sold and I transitioned out, I think we were about 150 people.
So you have plenty of experience like scaling some of these companies up and seeing it as well.
To that degree, yeah. I mean, I've never worked at like a New York Times or like a huge company. I've always worked at this kind of balance of where you're in the trenches, you're growing it from 20 to 150 people. After we sold that business and I moved to New York, I was essentially an executive mercenary for like 6 years. And I started a consulting practice to help basically with monetization of media companies and some tech companies, a couple SaaS companies. And my whole flavor was that I wasn't a normal consultant who just like put together a report about what you should do. Like, I actually got in the sauce and did it with you and gained the trust of everyone in the company and moved forward with it. With that, I got exposure to some bigger companies. When Blackstone bought Foundry IDG for over $1 billion, their executive team brought me in to help with, settling the dust on a lot of the acquisitions they were doing. So I got exposure to like some big gnarly stuff, and that was really helpful. But I was always also running these more like niche digital media companies that I was seeing the best practices there and like what was working.
No. After Sam,
I'm making $100 in 30 minutes to walk these dogs. Nope. This store sells $12,000 cowboy boots.
What do you commonly see in companies that have something good,
Yeah.
but they need to take it to the next level, and they just aren't able to do that in the current structure that they have?
The answer is really boring, and even more hard. It's typically just fundamentals. Like, it's so underrated that companies that are trying to get to the next level, there's a lot of pressure to have huge moonshot ideas. And like, I think that's great. But most of the companies that I saw, especially when I was a consultant and I was under the hood and, call it a dozen companies in 6 years, the biggest gap was fundamentals. Like they just didn't have operational discipline. Their sales team was fat and happy and not executing. Their products were being launched just for the sake of doing whatever the new shiny thing is. They were not prioritizing good relationships with their audience and like putting audience first and prioritizing data. The companies that were doing those fundamentals were growing. And everyone was like, how are you doing it? And it was 10 different very healthy things. And that remains true today. The game continues to change as to like what those fundamentals are. But I think the story is still true. Incremental growth.
Do you think bigger legacy media has failed in that they're focusing on the wrong fundamentals and the game is now shifted to more digital? The way content is produced and put out to the world, the audience has changed. What do you think is lacking in big legacy media, older school media? And how do you think you all are doing it differently at Morning Brew?
Yeah, I wouldn't say blanket statement legacy media has failed. I would say in certain pockets, they've prioritized the wrong things for too long and they're getting caught. Media is fragile and it is hard to remain relevant and profitable and growing for extended periods of time without being very comfortable being uncomfortable and like trying new things and having that incremental growth. Larger media companies, especially in consumer, became very successful doing low common denominator things and very passive things. So what I mean by that is it was relatively easy to create a lot of content, generate a lot of impressions, and then monetize those impressions. People would buy huge amounts of ads, and it was selling scale, selling volume. That would mean that you're writing lots of articles to get as many humans in as possible, even if it's passive, even if they're not staying for a while and like taking off their shoes and having dinner, they're just literally coming to read a listicle article and go. If you get enough of that on your website, you can put programmatic ads, you can sell lots of advertising on there, and you can monetize that passive traffic if you can say that those people are directionally the right people. The problem is that if Google changes their algorithm, or if platforms change, or if AI changes things, if any dynamic like that out of your control, and there's always dynamics out of control, happen, you can lose that passive traffic. So what B2B and smaller, like less sexy media companies have had to do for a long time, because they didn't have that scale, was generate direct relationships. They couldn't monetize lots of eyeballs because they didn't have them. So what they were doing were monetizing, oh, this people subscribe to my newsletter, they go to my events, they download assets that I create. It was much more direct, right? But it seemed less sexy. The irony is that those like in the trench, more disciplined, direct relationship ways of monetizing and interacting with your audience are fast forward really valuable right now. And what you see is legacy companies coming to terms that that's the case and that they need to start to do the stuff that some of the smaller media companies were doing. Scale up to a point is still important. I mean, we have over 4 million people active on our main newsletter. That's really important. Like quality versus quantity only really works if the quantity is at a certain level. But I believe in media specifically, like healthy operation, like knowing your audience, working with them, not being reliant on traffic, not being reliant on passive business models is really mandatory.
Did you always know you wanted to be an executive?
I think the answer to that is yes. Like it wasn't some like unnatural, like I'm gonna force my way to be a CEO type of thing. I always kind of gravitated towards being in charge of things, and as I got more experience and more credible, especially within media, that became easier. I think the consulting time period was hugely formative because like I did that for 6 years.
Right.
And I'd been at this company for 10 years, right, before that. And we had a nice transaction there, it was a good outcome. But then you also have this doubt, like, okay, like, was I good? Am I good? Or was that just like a one-time thing? Like, same type of feeling founders have. I wasn't a founder, but I had a similar thing. So that period of time when I was consulting, part of it was I had a chip on my shoulder to be like, I want to be that good. I want to like prove to the industry.
Was it a call like, hey, would you want to be CEO, or did you have to go through like an interview process?
They put me and some other candidates through a process that lasted a couple months. I had to do some online like psychological tests.
Oh, that's cool.
To like basically just figure out a little bit more intense than like what we typically do to kind of judge what kind of leader I am.
Personality.
All that. And then they hired an outside firm that actually flew over and did some interviews with me and the other candidates, did like a full day session with them. To kind
they
of
would
like,
not like what they would find in me
no,
if they did that.
Yeah,
it would not be good.
You should be careful. This is recorded. You have many cameras here.
Yeah.
But it ended up being really helpful because then they tell you all the outcomes of that.
Oh, nice.
And they walk you through like, this is what this means. This is what type of leader you are. You should be careful not to like go too far that way, but also you seem to have a good balance there. It was like a physical, but like professionally.
What type of CEO do you want to be?
I mean, firm but fair. Like, I've always tried to be pragmatic about things, very transparent. Again, just getting back to fundamentals, like the number one thing that leaders do, not even CEOs, like leaders of divisions of companies, is just botch communications. And especially with like younger workforces post-COVID, like think of all the dynamics of that, of people that this is the first time they've been in office, this is maybe the first job they've had. Communication is so important, just being transparent, of even saying like, I don't know what we're doing totally yet, but this is the direction. Or we're gonna make this decision as a company, this is where we're going, and having like the appropriate amount of communication. It sounds so basic, most leaders just don't do it because you do get slapped on the wrist for saying the wrong word or the wrong thing. There's a lot of incentive to not communicate to your company or to your teams, but the consequence of not doing it is failure. Like me being clear and firm but fair with my expectations has made all the difference as to why this company is in such a good spot today and why we're outperforming the market by so much. It's literally that simple, like having vision, communicating it to the company, and being very transparent about what our performance expectations are and how we're gonna get there. And then showing up and like being in the trenches with them. Leaders who don't do one or all of those things are gonna eventually fail.
What is the hardest experience you've had as the Morning Brew CEO? Like what's one
hardest experience? Again, Will. So like the hardest part was actually last year. Like last year, 2024 was a rebuild year for this company. Like we changed out a lot of senior leadership. We completely rebooted the culture in some ways, and like the company skyrocketed and then came down, and there were layoffs a few years ago because they had grown too fast. And when I came in, it was like time to recover. And last year was very much a rebuild year. We built the whole event strategy, what you saw today. We launched like 10 new products and we reset the culture. So that was really hard. That was like a lot of days of losing people, of making hard decisions, like all that difficult stuff. Getting to the other side of that has been transformational. Like bringing in the senior leadership that we have now, having the culture that we have now and the people that are here, and having the like operational discipline where people don't think it's scary anymore. They're into it, they buy into it, has made all the difference. So that by the time I became CEO, to be honest, I got to take credit for all that hard work. Like the minute I became it, because now I've been executing on that and like just not dropping the ball as the goal.
All right. You ready for the fire round?
Sure.
Top 3 movies.
Top 3 movies. Oh, I thought about this. Really like movies from like that early 80s period, like Trading Places and Coming to America, like just great. Fifth Element. And then my wife would make fun of me if I didn't say La La Land.
Outside hobby.
Well, I have a 3.5-year-old, so most of my outside hobbies are her outside hobbies. Swim lessons, lots of walks with our dog Disco. I love being in New York City, like love restaurants and wine, and just like wine is something you never actually learn everything about.
If I could give you one superpower, what would it be?
Be able to travel around New York City and adjacent areas in like a teleport.
Biggest fear?
I fear not being reliable.
Favorite piece of news that Morning Brew has covered in your tenure as CEO?
There's been some pretty funny stuff from Dan Toomey recently. We did this video recently about Bill Ackman playing in the tennis tournament. And Dan was, again, the right amount of making fun of him. And it was so on the nose that Bill actually retweeted it and said, "This is funny," which was great.
What is one thing you wish you enjoyed more?
Children's birthday parties.
Oh, what a great
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
I despise going to them.
I love my daughter more than anything, and she loves those birthday parties, but 9 out of 10 of them are god awful.
Last meal on earth.
There's a sushi restaurant in New York City called Lure. There's a roll called the Hellfire Roll. There's this new restaurant called Kiko that has like the best chicken I've ever had in my life. My favorite like special occasion restaurant is The Grill in New York City, and their like sole, their Dover sole fish is outrageous. So I would have some combination of those things, I think.
What's your message to the world as a business leader? Yeah, anything you want to say? If you could speak to the world right now.
Just do what you say you're going to do. Like show up for your coworkers. If they need you to do something, don't be the one who doesn't do it and they're like, wow, that person never delivers. It's the same thing extrapolated to everything. Friendship, relationships, your parents, whatever it is. Like you have to be reliable and be somebody that they know they can trust.
I can do more. Just all right, whatever. I appreciate you, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Great to
Thanks
talk.
for joining the CEO series. Cool company for the CEO series for us. So
We're excited to be here, and you're a creator, and as you can see, we are a big creator company.
Yeah,
so it
creator
makes a lot of
friendly.
sense.
don't subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Are you gonna eat?
I already did. I'm good. I might have some water.
I'm a big prosciutto fan. I'm sorry, guys. Big prosciutto fan.